Hey, this is Notser, and I want to check out the premium camouflage for tier 10 now. I sort of did this on my stream, and I completely forget that not everyone sees the stream, so let's just go through it. This was off of the gearing video. People were like, hey Notser, what do the tier 10 camouflage look like? Glad you asked. So, Shimakaze. This is the premium for the Shimakaze, and before we go into this, let me just tell you what you're gonna get. These are tier 10 premium camouflages. It costs 5,000 doubloons. So 5,000 doubloons is not cheap. It's about the equivalent cost of, I think, a tier 6 or a tier 7 premium. But what you're getting is basically a premium tier 10. That's kind of the value that they gave you. Now, I wouldn't recommend this for all because you're just going to go broke, of course. But if there's a couple tier 10 ships that you really enjoy, I highly recommend it. Like the gearing for me, the Khabarovsk, the Des Moines, the Zhao. I think those are great ships for me personally because I really enjoy their playstyle. Now you can see it has the 3% detectability range, it has the 4% dispersion. That's the normal things that you associate with camouflage, regardless of if it's premium or doubloon cost or whatever. All of that stuff is really sort of required in order to compete. But everything else is great. 20% more credits per battle is huge at tier 10 because it's just so, I mean, it's an expensive tier to play at. Minus 50% to the cost of the ship's post-battle service. Now, you might have seen that in the gearing game, and I don't want to talk too much about this, I just want to show off the camo. You might have seen that it basically was half the price that it usually is, and it was very easy to pay for the premium or the non-premium cost of the ship. It's awesome. And of course, XP. This is just going to go into XP earned by the ship, and then you can convert it to free XP by spending doubloons. I hope everyone's familiar with this. It's existed since day one. And some of you might have a question, why would I want XP at tier 10? I can't use that. Well, you can if you spend real money and convert it. Sound familiar, right? Every free-to-play game is doing stuff like this, so it's nothing new. It's there if you want to take it. Spend the money. I will probably not spend the money to convert all the XP. I care more about the credit income and the cost to run the ship. So, here's the Shimakaze. Shimakaze looks great. It sort of reminds me of Rising Sun. I've always enjoyed the idea that the Japanese red circle is the sun, and I like the rays coming off it. Now, of course, it has been iconography that is associated with taking over territory, but the idea that it would have sun rays, it's sort of similar to that, possibly some sort of, and it's the same on both sides. Now, some of you might, why do I care about it being the same on both sides? Some, it is not. This is the same on both sides. All right, let's go to the Zhao. The Zhao is, of course, the tier 10 Japanese cruiser, and it's squiggly. This is more like the camouflage version. It has white, obviously, added into it. You don't see the bare metal, except for on the top, of course. I like this style. I think it looks good. I intend to use it. And I definitely intend to buy it because the Zhao, at some point, you know, maybe they'll give a sale. No, they won't. But maybe they will, and then I'll take advantage of it. We have the Yamato. Yamato is, of course, the tier 10 Japanese battleship, and oh boy, it looks great. It looks really great. It's sort of a mix of both. You sort of have the rays, straight lines, and then you have the squiggle from the detectability camouflage that you would expect. So I like the way it looks. It's a nice color. I like it a lot. It would be cool if camouflage would be applied to aircraft also, but I understand. Next up, we have the tier 10 Japanese aircraft carrier, and apologies, I have not actually earned this ship, so I therefore have not learned exactly how to pronounce it. Hikiru? I think it's Hikiru? Hakaru? Either way, It's pretty impressive. I personally like this dark green, sort of this sandy green, and the command tower is very tall. Those sort of look like solar panels, but I know there's not solar panels. I assume those are vent of some sort. Help the engine out, help the interior. But yeah, I like the way it looks. Looks very cool. Very cool. Nothing on the deck, of course. The Japanese did learn. You know what? Maybe putting a red circle on the deck of an aircraft carrier is a bad idea. And for anyone who doesn't know that, they did that in Battle at Midway. The aircraft carriers that they sent out were all painted with this giant red circle on the deck, and of course the dive bombers were like, thank you. It's so easy to tell where I need to target. Next up we have the gearing, and if you watch the gearing game, then you got to see it. And mostly you've noticed the Japanese, it's the same left to right. Well, the Americans are the same, sort of left to right. There is slight, the texture is not mirrored one-to-one. You can see that sort of light blue with the steel, and it's much closer to the tip. In my personal opinion, this is a little bit weaker camouflage than the others so far, just because it seems like it's two-tone, it's sort of plain, but I love the gearing that much, I would probably buy it just for these stats alone. Now, some of you might say, Notser, this is ruining the game. It might very well be ruining the game, because it is influencing tier 10 matchups. But it's 5,000 doubloons. If I were to buy camo for all of my real ships, now this is my press account, but if I were to get camo for all the real ships, you're talking a lot of doubloons. What? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 65, 70? 70,000 doubloons? 70,000? That's like $300. That's a lot of cash. I don't see people doing that. I only see most people probably getting one or two. You know, really enjoyable tier 10s that they like to play a lot. So that's the gearing. The Des Moines. And I will try to go through this. It is the same for every single camouflage. You get your detectability, your dispersion, and then of course the 50% reduction in cost for the vessel, 20% credit income boost, and 100% XP earned per battle. Now this one reminds me a lot of these camos. This camo in particular, it's like, it's sort of there, it's sort of not. It's not really impressive to look at. It just looks like they slapped something on the Des Moines, and it is not one-to-one per se, but you get the similar vibe left to right. Next up, the Montana. Now, I like the way the Montana looks. The Montana reminds me of a German battleship with this black, and I like that style. I think that looks clean. The whole idea of real camo is that it's going to break up the silhouette on the horizon. You're going to see shadow, see light, and not be able to identify exactly what ship it is. You will know there is something there. You just can't tell that it's a Montana class or something like that. And sometimes you can get into a point where they'll cut it off short, and they'll be like, oh, is it a shorter ship, you know? That's the sort of mentality that you try and go into. And again, same stats, everything's the exact same. Midway. Next up, the Midway one looks pretty cool. Nothing on the deck, of course. Americans weren't silly enough to do that. But the side of the ship, the navy blue, the water blue, the iron with a little blue in it, steel, it looks good. It looks good. It looks clean. You have the little doorway where you bring up the aircraft from the second deck. But yeah, it looks good. It looks good. I like the way these look. I like the way these look. Next up, Khabarovsk. The Khabarovsk is a fantastic ship, and it is one-to-one. It appears in its mirror on both left and right. I think it looks great. This is an effective camo at range to me because of the nature of how it's breaking it up. It might read as a slightly smaller ship. You might lose it in the sun. You know, maybe this area is concealed by a huge sun ray, and then you're like, what am I looking at? Where's the front? Where's the back? Again, same stats. It's the Hubbalnusk. I have a lot of success in this ship. I also like the red deck with this blue. So I'm probably going to pick it up. The guns themselves are a darker blue than their normal. So, alright. Next up, we got the Hindenburg. And I don't have enough doubloons on the press account to purchase it. But we'll check it out. Now, it is very German. You notice that the hull of the ship slightly lighter. Just a hair lighter color. See how it's sort of... This is sort of an iron color, I would say. And of course, rust everywhere. And it looks like they paint on sort of a what is it, like a tan? A light brown mixed with iron? Maybe a yellowish brown. And then you have these black sort of tiger stripes. It looks good. I like the German look. I've always liked the German style from World War II. They're the... I'm not going to say they're the villains, but they knew how to be intimidating to their opposition. And I think their ships are just as intimidating. I like this clean look that the Germans go for. That's why I like the Montana look. I think the Montana looks great. Next up, we have the Minotaur. I'm trying to say it the way the Brits would say it, because it is a British cruiser. And I would say, yes, this is a departure. Definitely a departure from everything else. It's a very bright color. This is like the same blue that is on the Arpeggio Takawa. That Arpeggio blue is very light, and yeah, it's very interesting. Now, this is sort of a dark steel iron. This is closer to what the German army would have on their tanks, actually. You've got sort of a greenish white, maybe? And you have that light blue. Now, this is an example of a ship where it is not mirrored. So, this is the starboard side, of course. This is the port side. And no, you're not being deceived. It sort of is the inverted color tone. Not quite, but it sort of is where this dark steel color is. The light blue has replaced. The white is still where the white is. And yes, we have the steel, of course. But this is probably the most interesting version of the Tier 10. And when I say interesting, I don't know that I would own it. But the stats alone are worth it, I think. Okay, so we have to see the Großer Kurfurst. So the Großer Kurfurst. And this honestly might be better if I go to my account. Yeah, I think I'm going to go to my account real quick. All right, so where were we? We are now on my account. We have not seen the Großer Kurfurst. Großer Kurfurst, of course. I'm trying to say it. The German Großer Kurfurst. And let's just put the Scharnhorst guy in. Just do it. Okay. So we haven't seen the camo for the Großer Kurfurst. Here is the camo for the Großer Kurfurst. Same stats as everything else. It looks like a giant Tirpitz to me. It's got the white nose, the black, the steel, iron color. I like the way it looks. I think the Tirpitz looks great. It's a clean look. Highly recommend it. Next up, we have the Moskva, Moscow, for those who are not familiar. And it is a very clean look. I like the way this looks a lot. I could just be biased. A little biased. But it looks great. It looks great. It's so clean. It just oozes style to me. It would work well right now, just like the Montana does, just like the German stuff does. It's clean enough that I feel comfortable using it, and that's the best compliment I can say about it. And it's not so simplistic that it's like, what's the point, right? I like the way it looks. Now, would I get it on the Moskva? I don't think I played enough to warrant the purchase, but I think it looks great. Would be happy with that. Let's just double check that we have covered all of them. We did the Hobodovsk, we did the Moskva, we did the Minotaur. I always want to say it Minotaur, like we do in America. We did the Hindenburg, we did the Großer Kurfurst. We, of course, did Gearing, Des Moines, Montana, and the Midway. Still working up. God, I want the aircraft carriers to be better. And then, yes, of course, we did everything. Okay. So, hopefully, you saw something that you thought was interesting. What do you think of Premium Tier 10 Camo and the stats that it gives you? Do you think it's too far? Do you think it's just right? It is a huge jump in what you get from this camo compared to Tier 9. I'll do an example, just so you're not like, well, I don't believe you, Notser, you're crazy. I'll show you exactly why. So this is the Tier 10, obviously. Detectability, dispersion, credit income is great. The post-battle cost to service a ship is fantastic. It really does. It's so nice to save so much. That's really where all the cost is incurred at high tiers. And you have 100% XP. Right. So we're going to go to the Iowa. I have the premium because I really like the Iowa. And look what you get on the Iowa. 20% for the post-battle, which is not bad. You don't get any credit income increase. Everything else is the same. It's not bad. This costs 4,000 doubloons, though. Right? Yes, 4,000 doubloons. That's a lot. And you give up a lot compared to the Tier 10. It's probably better to just play a Tier 10. You would probably see more income at Tier 10 than Tier 9. Either they need to bring back the Tier 10 or improve the Tier 9 premium. And if they're going to improve the Tier 9, maybe they improve the Tier 8, Tier 7, Tier 6. Just so it feels a little bit smoother as you go up the line. I have the premium in my Mogami. It's 10%, yeah. So, yeah, I think they need to address the premium camo and have a little bit softer curve as you're moving up. This is 3,000, yeah, 3,000 doubloons. See, I would say to you, this is worth 1,000 doubloon difference between tiers 8 and tiers 9. But going from tier 9 to tier 10, I think there's a far more value in the 5,000 doubloons that you're going to spend at tier 10 than the 4,000 you're spending at tier 9, and even the 3,000 you're spending at tier 8. You just get way more for your money. Now, they do look great, and I might pick this up. I really like that the gun barrels are dark blue. I think that looks great. I really like the North Carolina. Anyone who's watching the stream today, the North Carolina is just a great ship. So, I hope you enjoyed checking out the tier 10 camouflages. I will be playing more games in these ships, just to show them off, of course. See them in actual combat, not just in the in-score screen. I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.